part of the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network. I'm one of your hosts, Jason Bahamundi, and I'll be joined shortly by Evan Birch. Enduring Minds is where we explore the intersection of mental health and endurance sports while breaking the silence surrounding men's mental health alongside the societal expectations and norms that discourage men from seeking help. We're here to have real, open, honest, and vulnerable conversations, creating a supportive space to share the struggles, victories, and everything in between that shapes who we are. So leave the shame, guilt, and fear at the door and join us for another episode of Enduring Minds. All previous episodes are on the Run Try Bike YouTube channel and on the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network on your favorite podcast platform, alongside 7 other incredible shows. Please be sure to subscribe, rate, review, and leave a comment, as that helps us grow the podcast and be able to tell more incredible stories. Let me bring Evan onto the show. Evan, how are you doing, man?
I'm sitting in sunny Calgary enjoying my 2 months of summer.
It hits right on time, right as July 1st is around the corner.
Mm-hmm, yeah, and then we have till September, and then hopefully September is okay, and then maybe snow in October. Who knows? We'll see.
Fingers crossed for at least 61 days of weather for you.
Appreciate the optimism.
So let's get into today's show. I'm excited to have Loehr Young join us today. And if that name sounds familiar, it's because he's been on our Fireside Chat podcast, as well as been featured in 2 articles on our site. I met Loehr through Instagram and was immediately drawn to him because of his positive attitude and vibrancy, along with the great pictures that he has shared with us in videos. I mean, they were amazing. But here's the thing. Life isn't always that way. Dealing with alcoholism, staring death in the face, and today dealing with his wife's cancer. These are all part of Loehr's life and some of the obstacles that he deals with and has dealt with, and some of the things that we're going to touch on when it comes to dealing with his mental health and how he overcomes those things. So this is sure to be a great episode, so thank you for listening. And Loehr, welcome to Enduring Minds. How are you, buddy?
Hello.
I need you to move the camera so we can see your face. I got a great shot of your mouth.
That's kind of what I was asking. I was like, my head is cut off. How do I fix that? That looks more like y'all.
You're perfect.
You're nailed.
Hey, dude, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. And not just that, but being willing to be open and vulnerable with us. I know it's not easy for a lot of people, especially men, to do. So I really appreciate you taking the time to do so.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So the last article that Holly wrote for us about you involved BMX, jet ski racing. I know that you're a cyclist and you're clearly a runner. But which version of you felt the most lost out of those and maybe others? And which one has felt like it has set you the most free?
I mean, I feel a little bit the most lost in running. It's the newest part of all of it for me. So I'm still finding my way in that. The bike is just part of me. Been doing it so long. But running, I still kind of feel like an imposter.
So when you're going through that process, right, and I'm sure social media doesn't help you in some instances to not feel like an imposter because somebody's running slightly faster or slightly longer than you.
Yeah.
Like, do you have tools in your tool belt that help you deal with that imposter syndrome and overcome it so that you can get out the next day for your 4%?
I mean, I feel like mine is almost just more stubbornness. I just get up and go anyway. The voices are there. You don't have to really answer them or listen to them. Just get up and do something. That's just how I kind of deal with it.
And there, I read, obviously I'm the type of person that I like to just like find about the person on the day of these podcasts if I don't know them personally, because it's such a cool way to do it, because I think it allows us to just have a more genuine conversation.
Sure,
and immediately when I saw that you were into BMX racing when you were a kid, the first memory that popped in my head was my first BMX bike that was stolen from me as a kid.
Oh yeah.
And I specifically remember locking it up on the bike rack, coming back, and just this like overall feeling of just like my bike is gone.
Full despair.
Yeah, full despair. So that's my first memory when I saw BMX. That was what popped into my mind. But in that BMX racing, obviously, growing up, I mean, kids are exposed to so many sports, and I think that's such a beautiful way to do it. That's what I do with my own kids. I just kind of put them into whatever
Yeah.
they see passion in, and if they want to keep doing it, that's great. But
Yep.
what was it about BMX biking for you growing up that just like you just like latched onto? Like, what was it for you?
Man, it's kind of hard to say. I grew up in a time when the YMCA was kind of our babysitter. So like you've done with your children, I played everything. Soccer, football, ran track, everything that had basketball, everything at the Y. Um, and I don't really know exactly what it was, but something about the bike from early on just got me. It was a way for the world to expand. It was a feeling of freedom. It still is. It's a time machine. You get on the bike, and at times I'm still that 11-year-old kid roaming around my old neighborhood. It's hard to pinpoint exactly what it is that pulled me in, but it's been there almost from the start, the first ride without training wheels, and it's still there.
How much has cycling changed for you with regards to getting away? And let me phrase it so that you understand what I'm getting at. So as an 11-year-old, there's a freedom in riding. You have no cares in the world. You have no responsibilities. I'm just out
Right.
riding with my
Right.
buddies and everything else. And then life happens. You're dealing with alcoholism at one point.
Yep.
You have kids. Your wife gets diagnosed with cancer. And does riding your bike allow you to get away from all of that so that you can process? And if so, when you come back, what's it like to now here's reality again, right? So you ride for an hour, 2 hours, whatever the time frame is, you still have to come back to reality. Like, how do you work through that?
I mean, I think you nailed it. And I'll add that especially mountain biking for me is a complete way to get your focus away from all of that. Because, mountain biking, if you don't pay attention, you're probably not, the end is not going to go well. So mountain biking, you definitely have to zone in and focus and get into the flow of what you're doing, or you'll hurt yourself. So to me, that's just an ultimate escape from it. And any kind of ride, run, exercise, fun activity has a lasting effect of kind of calming you down. And I'm sure there's science and brain chemistry involved in that, but it's hours afterwards before reality completely sets in. So to me, that gives you a little gradual re-entry, if you will, into reality.
When you come back to reality, and we'll stick with today's life, how much easier is it for you to have a conversation with family or friends about the hard stuff, the things that are difficult, because you've just gone out and ridden your bike for however long you've ridden it? Does it give you the freedom to be like, I can talk about this now?
I mean, it does. I'm kind of in a place where you've got to appreciate really every moment, the good, the bad, all of it. The bad, whatever is coming, but what you really have is right now. So dwelling on the hard stuff is just not something that I'm doing much of. I'm trying to look at, hey, what's good right now? Let's go with that instead of what might happen. So
That's awesome. Yes. So there, you and I have something in common. Swimming is definitely not either of our fortes in regards to athletics. My feet sink. I tried off-road triathlons for a year, mountain bike, open water swim, and trail runs, and that's how I actually got into long-distance trail runs. So it's kind of a fun fact that both of us don't love swimming or can't do it very well. Is that fair to say? But in relation to that, we've talked about a lot of things on our podcast, and I want to kind of talk about the aspect of pain. So from emotional pain, physical pain, like how has your relationship with pain changed from all of the emotional pain that you've endured to the physical discomfort that we have in these endurance feats? Do you see those differently now, and how would you correlate those with how you see it today?
I mean, I'm at an age, and most everybody's been through stuff, but I'm at an age where I'm pretty aware of the fact that you're going to get through it. Your mind is way stronger than, your body's capable of way more. Your mind is way stronger. We're all batting 1,000 of things working out. So it's always just keep going, just keep moving one step, just don't stop. That's kind of my mantra, and how I handle it is just don't full on quit.
It's kind of that,
keep plugging forward, relentless forward motion. That's not my quote. I heard that one somewhere, but that's a good one.
Yeah. And it's, mine is like relentless forward progress. Same kind of lines of that, but it's, I mean, pain is one of those things that I've realized that if you give it a voice, that it hurts even more. Right. I mean, you roll an ankle or you stub a toe. Yep. If you give it a voice, like it can just consume you. And that's, I think, both physically and mentally. So, I can definitely relate to that one.
Yep. Yeah. And to me, it's just, and I've actually had people ask me that, especially since my wife has been going through cancer and stuff. They're like, how do you do this? How do you deal with it? I'm like, well, fuck, what's the alternative? Yeah, it sucks. Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah, it's a nightmare, but what are you going to do? Give up? Like, that's not the answer.
No, it's not the answer, but that's an easy thing for us to say, because we've dealt with our shit. I think the issue is that most people don't deal with their shit. Most people don't deal with their traumas. They don't talk about it.
It's human nature, though. Humans run from conflict. That's just human nature. You can't help it. I mean, even in the throes of being completely hardly functional and drinking yourself to death, like, I know I've got a problem. I deep down want to stop, but it's easier to just, maybe it'll go away if I just don't talk about it or address it. But, eventually the elephant in the room comes out.
And I think that's the key, right? That eventually the elephant in the room does come out. But I think the ability to handle a conversation about your wife's diagnosis, the ability to handle a conversation about dealing with alcohol, is because you've gone through that trauma, one, but you've also been able to talk about that trauma.
Yeah, I think it's important, though, because I want it to matter. Like, if one person hears it and goes, well, dang, he got through it, he figured it out. Well, I mean, I can do it too, because I'm way smarter and stronger and more gifted than him. Like, that's everybody. So
it's
of course.
Yeah, it's very similar. A lot of people like to say lessons learned. I think lessons learned it's a great phrase. That's awesome that you get to learn something, but to me, it's like lessons actioned. Like if you're just learning, like, okay, that's great that you learned it, but what are you doing about it? Yeah. And I think that's what all of these pursuits and all these things allow us to do, is we go out there, we show ourselves what we're capable of. So when something like your wife's diagnosis with cancer comes, you can be like, well, I have a well of pain and things that I've gone through that I can pull from now, that I have the opportunity to show myself through action that those lessons that I did learn, I can actually like take them and do something with them. Because learning it is one thing, but doing something with it is a completely different thing.
And I think as well, it's good to get comfortable with thinking and considering, what's coming in life, because there are going to be ugly things. Everybody gets old. Everybody's going to pass away at some point. Accidents happen. Tornadoes happen. Car wrecks happen. And, while you don't want that, you don't want to dwell on it. You don't want to be like trying to manifest that, but you best kind of get some clarity on how you're going to deal with it. Because, end game is everybody doesn't get out alive. Right. So I think you do need to spend some time thinking about, this is coming, so get ready, take a deep breath. It's going to be fine. It's going to suck, but it'll be okay. This is how it is.
So you've reminded me of a conversation that we had about a month ago with Kevin Stewart Crow, who on this very show talked about men in general, humans specifically, about fearing death. And I've talked to my wife nonstop recently about this idea of death and how comfortable I am with it these days, because I've been able to deal with my traumas and been able to deal with these hard conversations and being open in public about them, to have these conversations. And look, I'm not asking to die tomorrow by any stretch of the imagination, right? I just think that I'm more comfortable with it And I think that the people that aren't dealing with their traumas and having these conversations, whether openly in public or privately with a therapist or a family member or a friend or whomever, it makes it hard to understand what you're talking about, which is none of us are getting out of here.
Yeah. In the game, nobody gets out alive.
And I think by having these conversations, I hope, to your point, Loehr, that if one person hears it, they say to themselves, and especially men, like this whole show and this whole concept is geared towards men, say to themselves, I need to be more open and be more honest and be more vulnerable about the things that bother me and the things that hurt me. And if I cry, so be it, right? Like you don't have to be the quote unquote tough guy, like be vulnerable about it all.
I feel like many times a lot of that also comes with age and experience and just life experience. And not that there aren't young people that get it sooner, but I think the more you live, the more you learn to live. So
yeah, I completely agree there. And I know, Jason, we originally touched on this at the beginning in the first question with regards to your sobriety, Loehr. And I think you've talked a lot about consistency. And I know you're coming up on 8 years in August. Is that right?
I think that's right.
I
Yeah.
think that's right. I think
count.
that's right. That's good. You know what? You know you're being consistent when you lose count because it just becomes part of your just like every day, right?
Yeah. It's
I think
far
that's
enough
awesome.
away, I almost forget. But yes, it'll or I got it tattooed on me. Let's see. 8/23/17, 8/23/25 will be 8 years.
There we go. I was right. Bang on. So you talk about consistency being where the real magic happens. What does discipline look like for someone who's in your, like, you've seen the edge of chaos with like being literally, like you've said, like on your deathbed and coming back from it? Like, what does that come across to you as now?
You know, in a weird way, that's an example of consistency as well. You know, you consistently, pour the poison in, and it'll eventually you'll eventually get where that takes you. To me, it becomes just habits. Like you really almost have to develop it as a habit, and you got to stack it together over time. And it sort of sneaks up on you. You like it seems like yesterday that I was passing out from riding for 30 minutes and just crying, wondering like, am I ever going to fucking be able to ride my bike again? Like, this is terrible. It's great because I'm riding, but it's also terrible because I can't ride. Fast forward 5 years, and now if I don't do something for an hour a day, I lose my mind. And I was literally thinking about that this week. I was like, that's an awesome place to be. Like, I can get up and go run, and I can go paddleboarding for an hour, and I can go ride my bike for 60 miles, and it's not even really all that hard. Like, and I feel terrible if I don't do it. Like, even being tired and sore and beat up, I'm like, that's awesome that I'm capable of getting myself there. Let's go do it again tomorrow. So for me, it's just you got to get it to a habit. You got to get in the habit of taking care of yourself. And I love that analogy of that 4% too, because when you say 4%, people are like, I mean, that's nothing. That's less than we pay in taxes, right? So 4% of your day is nothing, right? So get up off your ass and go do something for an hour, whether it's walking or yoga or whatever. Like, you owe it to yourself.
We are a live show, and so for those of you who are joining us live, please feel free to drop comments in. And we did have one from Emily on Instagram that wrote, I love this. This conversation is so relevant to so many. This is a real conversation. Well done. And I think that's important, an important acknowledgement. And I want to go back to what you just said about the 4%, because Evan and I were talking about how we often treat endurance sports in just a purely positive way. Yet sometimes it can be negative, right? And it's like, well, I got to go get my 4%. I got to go get my 4%. I got to go get my 4%. And I'm using that as an example, but there are people who run streak. There are people who do all kinds of different. Have you come across a moment where you're like, I really need to take care of this first before I go take care of my 4%. And so I have to juggle my schedule. And if so, how does that impact you in dealing with whatever it is you're dealing with and trying to get that 1 hour, run, hike, yoga, whatever it might be?
Oh, that's daily, sorting it around, we run a business, my father-in-law passed away a year ago. We've been I'm actually at his house, just kind of closing up an estate sale right now. And I'm having to literally run around that, if that, if that analogy makes sense. That's a daily thing. I try to get it when everybody else is not getting it. But it might be evening, it might be morning, it might be in the dark. It's always a moving schedule. You got to have the willingness to take whatever it gives you.
And here's the interesting part about it, right? So you go work out at 7 p.m., let's say, and you post it, and I don't see it until 9 a.m. the next day, right? And so there's an impact on the audience who might say to themselves, well, shit, Loehr's already done his thing. Meanwhile, it was the night before.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I'm trying to convince Sabrina to move to Southern California so we can be on the same time zone. But
we got space out here. I'm more than happy to have you out here. But I think that's where some of the difficulty in our worlds lie when it comes to endurance sports is this comparison game, because these algorithms are feeding us things at all different times of the day. Like, I think I saw a post from like 3 weeks ago from somebody, and I was like, holy shit, look at, they just did this. And you look at the timeline and it's like from 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Like, how do you balance all of that kind of stuff? Whereas if you see somebody doing something and you're like, I gotta deal with my father-in-law's estate. I can't, like, how do you manage that process? Because that can impact mental health.
Yeah, I mean, you just I'll get it one way or another. I mean, it's life happens. That's another thing. You have to build flexibility into whatever you're doing, because eventually you're going to get sidetracked and have to do something different. This is another thing that I really took on after getting sober and beginning to get back, moving and trying to be an athlete. I used to just be a sourpuss, and if I can't ride my mountain bike, I just won't do anything. Well, now I've got a whole bunch of arrows in the quiver. So, like, there's no excuse to not go run for half an hour, right? Like, all you got to do is put your shoes on and go out the front door. Like, now I can do that. I can walk. We can go do yoga. I can ride. I can, I've got multiple options, which gives you less excuse. Like, and it makes it easier on me because I don't really care which one. Let's just get it done. They're all fun. They all accomplish what I'm trying to accomplish. So let's pick one and let's go.
Yeah, the phrase I like to use now is there's like human doing versus human being, and I think when you can start to come at these endurance feats not from ego but from, I call it like soul driven versus ego driven, and you're realizing that like these things that you're doing, like they're things that you do, they're not you, like they're things that you get to do, and these activities you get to go out and explore and like figure out like what are you going to learn. And with these ultra races and runs that I do, where now I'm doing like 200 plus mile events, and people are like, why, like, what is it? I appreciate that, but it's like and it's all relative, right? It's like my 200 is somebody else's 5K because they haven't been able to get off the couch for a year.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's the way that I see it.
Got a sweet spot of stuff too, right? Like trying to figure out your, like you obviously have got that down, and I'm not sure that's for me, but we're going to find out.
Exactly. And it's not necessarily like, Jason and I talk about this all the time. It's not about hitting the podiums. It's not about what is the outcome at the end. It's not about what you're going to get out of it. It's who you become in the process.
Yeah, that's
and that to me is like the sweet spot of endurance sports. It's not a matter of like we do these things to become something or to show ourselves like who we truly are.
Yeah, I think all of it too is just how will you ever know what you can do if you don't go do it? Like, and everybody was a beginner when they first started. Everybody had to learn, you kind of touched on something that I meant to mention a minute ago. That's how do you manage the ego? How do you manage the algorithm and everything coming at you? And, this person's running fast and this person's running far and this person's run streaking and, this person's doing the gravel ride, and I just have gotten where I look at it and I'm like, that's awesome. Like, that's great, man. Like, I mean, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're Kipchoge, there's somebody faster than you. There's somebody doing something different and more extreme and whatever. And I just think as long as everybody's happy and, pushing their boundaries and doing their thing and trying to figure out where they fit in. I think that's kind of what it all means. And at my age, you can't get too wound up in that stuff because everybody younger than me is faster than me. That's just Father Time.
The quote that I love to say that goes right in line with what you're saying, Larry, is in order to be great at something, the first thing you have to accept is at the beginning, you are going to be shit.
Yeah, you're going to suck.
That is like
what you're doing. I mean, look, man, I've been riding bikes 50 years and I still get butterflies, even just going on a group ride. Cause I'm like, do I fit in? Am I going to be able to keep up? Am I, is it, it's like, idiot, you've been riding your bike your whole life. You know exactly what you're doing.
Like, you mentioned something earlier about you don't know what you can do unless you give it a shot.
Yeah.
Right? And I say this all the time. Like, I might be just a phenomenal classic pianist, but I've never once opened up a piano and tried to, put my fingers on the keys. And I think it goes back to this idea that we have to take risks, and ties in what Evan just said, which is it's going to be horrible.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be awful at first, but eventually you'll get better at it.
Oh, yeah.
And it makes me think about today's world where we have convenienced ourselves into almost not doing anything, right? Like, if I can't get food delivered to my door right away, I'm never going to cook it. And it's like, why not? You might be a great chef if you just took a moment, right? Like, and so, like, you just got into the sport of triathlon.
I've done one.
Yeah. Hey, that's a start, right?
Yep.
What was it about you, do you think, that you were like, I'm going to take this risk and put my mountain bike to the side, my gravel bike to the side. I'm not going to just run. I'm not going to just cycle. I'm going to add swimming to it and see what happens. Like, what was that thought process?
I mean, you just nailed it. I have no idea how to do this, but it looks like fun. I'm going to try it. No pun intended, but like, and going in knowing like I can run, I can ride, like I can't swim, but I can figure it out and at least see if I like it. That's another thing. Test the waters. You don't know how will you know if you don't like it or not if you don't go try.
I couldn't agree more with you. Like, I remember when I first got into running, Boston qualifying was all the rage, and it still is.
Yeah.
Got to qualify for Boston. Got to qualify. And so I went down that rabbit hole and I trained. And during the training, I thought to myself, this shit sucks. Like, I fucking hate this. I hate everything about this. And I went out and I ran like a 3:31 or something like that, which was like 16 minutes off. And I was like, I'm done. Never doing this again. And I wound up finding ultras and trails and Ironman events and all of these other things. And I've come to fall in love with the 100-mile distance. And it's because it gets me away from the everyday for 20 to 30 hours. Like, that's the only thing I'm doing and nothing else. And I think that's the key to tying our sports to our mental health. It's finding the thing that you really enjoy and lean into it and appreciate the difficulties and what comes with that and all the different facets of the difficulties. Would you have said, as, let's say, a young adult, that I appreciate the difficulties because it helps me get better? Or is that something you've come to grips with as you've gotten older?
I think I've always had it, but maybe not really knowingly as much until now. But yeah, that's definitely running front and center. But I think before I think for me, at least, when you're younger, I don't know that you take the time to think through and think about what is behind that's running it all so much. As I get older now, I process it and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense now. It's kind of always been that way, but now I kind of know why.
How often, when you're done with your workout, whatever it is that you did that day, do you come home, you sit down, and you think to yourself, that was shit, but I still got it done? And a smile creeps across your face.
I mean, does anybody ever regret going for that run or ride or swim?
Yes. When I bonk and I'm laying in the back of the car fully dehydrated, like, this sucked.
Yeah, no, I mean, that doesn't last. Come on, you're going to laugh about it later. And we're going to tell stories about the time that I cramped up and couldn't get up, and I did it worse than you did, and it's
That's
all
true.
part of it. You're going to look back and go, "Damn, I lived through that somehow. That was awesome. I hope
But
it never happens again." But hey, that was cool.
But here's the thing. I think we have to be honest about that, right? Like you can't just be like, it was so great to be fully dehydrated and, so that I could tell this story. No, being dehydrated, laying in the back of the car was fucking awful.
Yeah,
I absolutely hated every second about that, wondered what was going to happen next. And now that I've been able to come to grips with it and understand that it wasn't fun in the moment, now I can talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, I've we've all done that. Everybody's done it. Like, and I look back on it, and I used to just be crazy embarrassed about it. And now I'm like,
Right.
I mean, it fucking happens to everybody.
Right.
Like, and you end up, as long as nothing seriously bad happens, you end up with a hilarious story. And nowadays, you probably got pictures and video, and your friends will never let you live it down.
Yeah, and I'm starting to see it in a different way now too. Probably more so just from a couple of things. Like I tore my ligament in my ankle during Tahoe 200 in the first 10 kilometers. Ran on it for another 45, but I quickly realized after I had to pull after taping, it didn't come around. And I mean, to run on a torn ligament that I later found out, obviously I didn't know in the moment, but to know that I ran basically an ultra on a torn ankle was like crazy to me. But at the same time, like the disappointment that I had and the like joy that I had of being out there, like most people don't realize like those two things can exist at the exact same time. It doesn't just have to be I'm disappointed this was shit. It can be I'm disappointed, man, I am so lucky to have even like been able to be out there and train and get here. And those two things can like live. And I think that's like you were talking about, you didn't think about that when you were younger. And as a coach, me coaching athletes now, I want them to learn that like earlier on in their journey, because if you can learn that early on that those two things can exist as an athlete, like you are unstoppable.
Yeah. I mean, and to me, that's a great example of you're capable of way more. Like that was adrenaline that pushed you another 45 on that happens. Like you roll an ankle and you kind of have to run to the car, and you might run your fastest miles after that, which is maybe kind of dumb, but you can still do it. It's when you stop that you go, oh God, something's actually really wrong.
Yeah. I wanted to quickly touch on, I know you've mentioned your wife's cancer diagnosis, and I think people underestimate, again, when stuff happens to us in our life, all these endurance athletes and endurance sports and things that we do, they're absolutely amazing. But when something actually happens that like that stuff that we didn't choose in our life, and the tools that you now have to not only like grieve and support your wife in what she's going through and support her, but what tools have you been able to have as like a couple? Because like my wife crews me for all my races. We are just like locked in. I get that sense about you and your wife as well too, that you're very like intertwined. So how has that been for you to be able to support your wife through her really like hard stuff that wasn't chosen for her?
I mean, I've tried as hard as I can to be there for every single thing. I've tried to let her take the lead and, letting me know what she would like from me, what she would not like from me. I've tried to be encouraging at every turn. She didn't talk with me a lot about maybe, the harder, deeper things. I encouraged her throughout it to please talk to somebody. I'm fine with it. I don't care who. I don't care if it's your friends, therapists, whatever. But you're not really talking to me. Please make sure you're talking to somebody. Just try to be there as much as you possibly can. That's the biggest thing. And I learned a lot. It's crazy, but I've learned a lot about how much stress that's like running in the background can affect you. It'll creep up and punch you in the face. And it's hard to manage it. It's hard to really realize it until you, like, I'll give a great example. The first Peachtree Road Race is coming up Friday, and that was the year that she was diagnosed. It was right after she started treatment and things were really kind of starting to get bad. And I had trained really well. I felt like I should be able to PR this, maybe finish top 5 age group, blah, 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 blah. 10 steps into the race, I was like, yeah, this is not happening. My stress level's through the roof, and I can't even hardly run. Then it just, I learned that I'm going to need to manage that better, in myself, so I can be there for her, more important than the race. But I didn't realize how much it was dragging me down. So I had to learn how to manage that and still be there.
What are your tools for managing the stress outside of I'm going to go for my 1 hour workout, whatever it might be?
Really, those are them for me. And I see people say that you don't need to use this stuff as therapy, and I don't know how much I agree with that. I mean, I agree it's not therapy, per se, but it sure helps keep you sane, just taking care of yourself and doing something that you truly love. Like, there's nothing much going on for me that if I get out for a nice mountain bike ride, no matter how fast it is or slow it is or long it is, if I have just a few minutes, where it's all focused and flowing and good, there's almost nothing that can't make better. And I think that doing that is very important, whatever it is. If it's reading a book or quilting or running, whatever it is, you've got to have that time for you, recharge you.
Yeah, I'm in the camp that running or any of these workouts is not therapy, having gone to therapy.
I mean, it isn't.
But I will say this, like, everybody is going to deal with things their way, and they have to figure out what that is. And for 46 years of my life, like, bundling it all up and holding it inside is not the right answer.
No.
I met my wife, and she encouraged me to talk, which may have been her downfall because now I won't shut the fuck up. But talking about things, and here's where I think this idea goes back to what we said earlier, which is finding that thing in your life that you didn't know was there. Being able to talk about it has led to having this show with Evan and being able to talk to other men. If Lori doesn't encourage me to open up and confide my deepest, darkest secrets to her, I don't open up and show my vulnerabilities and have these conversations with you, with Evan, with Kevin, with Mike the last show, or anybody else, right? And I don't post about them because I'm constantly protecting something. And I think that the lesson here is, whatever it is, if it's journaling, if it's meditation, whatever it is, you've got to lean into it and do it and not worry what Susie in Sarasota or Joe in Joplin, Missouri thinks about how you process it, because you're the one who has to deal with it.
Yeah, I think the way that and I'm similar to Jason in that sense, only the way that I look at it is whatever we do from an athletic perspective can deal with the symptoms, but it can't ever deal with the why associated with it. So it's great. Like you're talking about, you can go out and it'll allow you to deal with those like immediate stress symptoms and the things that you're feeling in your body to just like take them down a little bit. But it can't ever deal with the why aspect of like, okay, if I feel like this when this happens, like why is that, and how can I like find a way through it so the next time I don't have to feel that way and I can just go out and like enjoy my ride and not feel like I have to get rid of something on my ride. And I think that's the unique part about it. And again, like our Enduring Minds community, like Jason said, like we've now got this will be episode, I guess, our 13th guest. And I just think about the 13 people that we've spoken with and how much everybody has been willing to talk and share, and how the ripple effect of those people talking and sharing have now just like gone like this. So it's like every time we get a chance to share a story or talk to somebody or have somebody like you on, this ripple effect just continues and continues. And being able to group these people together eventually, and Jason and I keep talking about it, like how do we bring all of our guests specifically together to be able to like create a larger ripple effect down the line that allows us to not just have individual like successes with having these conversations, but like in a larger scale ripple effect.
I mean, some kind of a retreat with a panel or something would be a great idea.
Yeah,
that could attract a bunch of people. Again, it gets into like men aren't supposed to do that, because you typically see this with the ladies that have they have a community, and they got a bunch of people that they get together, and they have what looks to me like, I'm kind of jealous. I'm like, God, that looks awesome, but men can't do that, but I don't know why. But that to me sounds like a great way to do it.
We
think,
can, and I love it.
Yeah. To back up for a second and touch on, you've had 13 people, and I'm sure everyone's got a different story. Everyone, while many things are similar, things are also different. I think that being open and making sure people know that, to quote my grandfather, there's more than one way to skin a cat. For me, somehow I've managed all of this without therapy, but I've also had an open mind of, if I need it, I will absolutely go. And that I'll use getting sober as probably the best example of that, because most recovery programs are centered around therapy. They're centered around a program. They're centered around protocols that you follow and do. Somehow I've managed it without that. And in doing that, one of the things that I would tell people, and I know this isn't the case with everybody, and it's way harder than this is going to sound, but one of the things that I look back on the most, that I regret the most, is if I would have known that it would be as smooth as it has been for me, I would have quit way before I fucked myself up completely. I was terrified that it was going to be the hardest thing ever. Like, who am I going to be? How can this possibly? And it really wasn't all that hard. Once I had no choice but to face the elephant in the room, it was on, and it hasn't been particularly difficult for me. Why that is, I don't know. But I would like people to know that, whatever program you do, whether it involves a program or not, however you do it, I'm not sure there's a wrong way to do good for yourself.
I think that's the key to all of this entire conversation, which is life is not black and white. We are just living in shades of gray. When I quit alcohol, I didn't go to AA or anything like that either. And we've had a number of different guests who have said, I went to a meeting or two and it just wasn't for me. And they've been sober 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years. Like, again, it goes back to finding the thing that works for you and leaning into that, and not feeling the pressure to have to do something because somebody else has done something.
I think that translates in many areas of life. Like, you being a coach, I would say that you're fully aware of that. Like, you've got, there's ways that things are done that work, but the way you do it isn't necessarily static for everybody.
It's like emptying the dishwasher or loading the dishwasher. I'm sure all of our wives would have a different view on that, and it's cool. Like, you don't fight about that stuff. You just everybody does it differently, and it gets done. Like, and
that goes right back to talking about the algorithm and how do you manage, watching this person doing it this way and this person on a run streak for 3 years, and this. I think it's great. It works for you. You're not hurt. Like, who am I to say that's not the right way to do it? It doesn't work for me necessarily, but I mean, I'm inspired by it, and I think it's awesome.
And I will go back to this idea, because the three of us have dealt with and are dealing with, as well as our other 12 guests have dealt with and are dealing with, their traumas. I will go back to this idea because I've learned that when I wasn't dealing with my traumas, everything was a problem. This person's running further. This person's running faster. They're cycling. They've got more watts. They're doing, like, everything was better because I just wasn't dealing with my own shit. And once I learned how to deal with my own shit, nobody else's crap mattered, right? Yeah. Loehr's like, here's my 4% today. I went and did this. And I was like, you know what I did, dude? I ate a pint of ice cream. Cool, right? And
me too.
And I was comfortable with that. Like, I wasn't like, oh shit, let me go get my running shoes and go do this. Because I've gotten comfortable in my own skin, and I've learned that what's important to Loehr or to Evan or to Mike or to whomever else doesn't have to be important to me.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's not necessarily the way you need to do it. You're doing great and you're managing it well, and that is absolutely the right way to do it.
Yeah. And I go back to what Sach said probably 6-8 weeks ago now. He said, our vulnerabilities are our strengths. And I think about that almost every day when I think about what I'm seeing on social media and the conversations that I'm having and hearing and then thinking about myself in those scenarios and being like, you know what, this is a strength that I'm not chasing a watt per kilogram number anymore. And I'm not going out there to try to, run a 10-minute mile, going on a 12% vertical run. I just think that in dealing with the traumas that I've had to deal with and learning to deal with has allowed me to separate myself from everything else.
Yep. Yep. It's funny you bring up the power meter and the watts and watching all the stats and stuff. Like, I don't even have a cycling computer other than my watch. I've never had a power meter. And pretty hilarious. Just this last week, I went out on a ride, and one of the guys that I've ridden with him a bunch. He's a super cool dude, but he just got power pedals, and he constantly just talking about the power, and he's pestering me about it. And I was like, I have no idea. All I can tell you is I'm really small, and I don't believe I put out a lot of power, but I have no idea. But he he just kept riding, with me and beside me and calling out the power and this and that and the other. And it started to get in my head by the end of the ride. I was like, dang, now I kind of want to know, like, because he was doing 400 for, whatever right there. So I must have been somewhere near that. Like, I don't know. Now I kind of want some power pedals, or do I?
There's actually a study that just there's a study that just came out that I'm going to find it, Jason, because I think we need to do an in-between on this study. And it talked about the difference between people being so heavily reliant on their data outputs from their training before they went into a race. And then they did a study on people where all they had them do was track how they felt after training, didn't track any metrics, didn't do anything. The people who just felt did better in the races than the people who were like, and it's like the study actually, it was not a huge study, but it blew my mind just reading through it. And I was like, yeah, like, and that's how I've coached right from the beginning.
I think it's mostly true because I've said this a lot lately. I'm like, how good and fast were you before you knew better?
Yeah.
Like you looked at your watch and you're going, oh my God, that's way too fast. Well, it wasn't until you looked down and saw how fast you're going.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Your watch doesn't care how you feel on race day.
No.
It doesn't.
Nope.
Yep,
it may ask you afterwards, but it doesn't.
Yeah, my best races have been send it and just don't look.
With the athletes that I coach, they're like, should I wear my heart rate monitor? I'm like, why? Are you going to slow down? If you don't, just get rid of it. You've done the training. Your body knows. And you've been through that process and the connection between, I feel like this, and here's how fast I'm moving. And so you just build that muscle memory between the two. You don't need all of the gizmos and gadgets on race day. Not at all.
Yep. I agree. I mean, but I'm just like everybody else, though. I can pretty easily get wrapped up in looking at it. I always like, everybody likes to look back and go, what did I do here? Especially if it's your normal route. It's like, oh, I was nice and strong on that hill today. That's good, But but that whole, how good were you before you knew better?
A great line.
I love that quote. That's gonna be a bumper sticker, I think. Yeah. I'm gonna remember that one for sure. Loehr, I love how this conversation literally just turned into like Jason and I talk about. When we get into it, we have some predetermined questions, and it just turns into this like three guys having a chat by the fire. And that's what I absolutely love about it. But we have a way that we like to end all of our segments that you've probably heard a little bit about it. So we call it our stop, start, continue questions. Okay. So really, stop, start, and start. The segment is based on the Japanese tradition of misogi, which at its core, misogi is about transformation, shedding old habits, beliefs, and ideas, and really embracing and letting in a new, more powerful version of yourself while letting go and surrendering in order to grow. So your first question is your stop question. So if you had to choose one mental or emotional habit you want to leave behind this year, what would it be and why?
Expectations of other people. Just because I think you set yourself up for disappointment, I want to do better about that.
Oh, that's a deep one. Your start question is, if you were to commit to a radical mental shift this year that would force you to grow in new ways, what would it be and why?
finally, once and for all, learning how to look at and manage money.
That's a deep one. I was going to say, I thought you were going to say swimming, but
No, I mean, I look at it, I need to learn to apply that consistent little bites every day and get that handled the way that I handle everything else.
yeah, that's we haven't heard that one yet. So that one, that's awesome. I love it. Continue question. If you had to symbolically cleanse or renew one aspect of your mental health in the next year, what would it be and why?
Oh, wow, that's a tough one. I guess just giving yourself a break more. Just giving yourself some grace to just be human. Don't be so intense on yourself all the time. Just let it go more.
Yeah, beautiful.
Loehr, thank you so much for your vulnerability and your willingness to share pieces of your story with us today. Any final thoughts or words of wisdom, or maybe even a story that you want to leave us with?
Oh, wow. I think you're capable of way more than you think you are. I think if you'll spend the time to develop habits that teach, that you learn anything that you want to learn, whether it's fitness or running or finances or any of it, all you have to do is commit a little time, but do it often. Consistency is the key to really mastering any and everything, and you're capable of it. So get up and do it.
I love it. Where can people connect with you and everything that you're doing, especially the sharing the 4%?
I'm mainly on Instagram. You're welcome to follow me on Strava if you want to see all my shenanigans. I even post about cutting grass because it's one thing that I hate, but it's harder than running. So probably Strava and Instagram are the two best places.
We'll drop
What's
that.
your PR? I want to know what your PR is for grass cutting.
Well, I try to make it take an hour. An hour.
That's a 4% right there.
Yeah, I try to make it take an hour. But I have a push mower, man. I mean, it's work.
Yeah. Does it have a bag, or are you out there raking clippings as well afterwards?
Oh, I don't rake the clippings. I just mulch them up, and that stuff just makes dirt. We're gonna throw away dirt. Come on, man. Like, I call that top dressing the lawn. Come on.
There you go. The smart man. Funny story. I remember my dad, when I was a kid, he was like, "You got to go mow the lawn," and I'm anti-manual labor from when I was a kid. And I was like, nah, not doing that. And he said, well, you can't play in the yard ever again. So guess you never played in the yard ever again.
Oh, okay. So you want a funny story? I'll give you one about cutting grass. So my story is a lot like that. You have to cut the grass, and I hated it and this and that, but you have to do it, right? Well, people don't know, man. We had an electric mower. This is in the 70s, man. This is one that plugs into the wall, and it's got this hinge on it that the cord like threads through to help keep you from running over the cord. I mean, other than pushing a manual reel mower, that's about as hard as it gets. That's what I had to do. That's what I had to cut. The yard was small, but man, it was a pain in the ass. I hated every second of it.
Yep.
It's probably why I hate cutting grass now.
It's why I live in an apartment in a city, dude.
Yeah, people. I mean, and let's don't even get into the fact that the manicured lawn is probably the most unhealthy thing on earth for the environment.
Yep. All the chemicals. Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining Evan and I on this episode of Enduring Minds, man. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I apologize that I got crossed up, and I knew it was coming up, and I looked down. I was like, oh my God, I think I'm supposed to be there right now.
All good. It was a great show. Thanks, man. Have a good one.
Thank you, guys.
Evan, we normally have an outro for our Enduring Minds episode, but this is our last one before we take our summer break and press the reset button for ourselves and give us an opportunity to think about the things that we've done over the last half a year. And since November, when we got this ball rolling, actually more than half a year, 8 months. So before we close out season 1 of Enduring Minds, I'd like for you to take a moment and reflect on what these last 8 months have meant for you, done for you, given to you, taken away from you for that matter, because life is, again, shades of gray and not just black and white.
Yeah, I mean, and I've had a lot of life happen in that period of time. I've gone through a lot myself, which again, I think having this, like we've talked about, is a little bit of an outlet for ourselves as well, too, a little bit selfishly. But sometimes it's okay to be selfish, and I think in that, if your intentions are pure, and that means you're being able to bring these stories of other people's like just incredible things that they've been through in their life and showing other people that we aren't meant to do this alone. I think that's the probably the most beautiful part about this show is we have the opportunity to share other people's stories, not just our own, and have conversations that people are afraid to have. And not because, it's a scary topic or anything, but just because it hasn't been okay to share it in a big way and not be seen as weak or see yourself as weak. So for me, it's really been about, sharing what we, we didn't even know what we were doing when we came into this. For context, it was one conversation that turned into something completely different that turned into recording 2 weeks later, which I think is beautiful when something happens like that or so organically. And I mean, you and I, like, we've grown to know each other a lot more over the last 8 months as well too, and we've been connected over the last 3 years as well too. But I think, yeah, it's just such a beautiful way to have conversations and share with other people on a larger scale that might just be a conversation that you might have with one person that now 50, 60, 70, 100 people get to hear it and then share it with somebody else. And it's like we talked about on the episode, it's a ripple effect. And I think that's what we're doing is we're creating a ripple effect. And I look forward to taking a couple of months off ourselves and again, regrouping, figuring out, what can we change? What do we want to do? And again, we're open to feedback. So if anybody has any ideas for us that they want to hear, guests that they want to see on, I would love to have people reach out and say, I want to be a guest. Like, I would love that because I think that's the whole point about this community is us connecting the dots with other people. So I'd love to hear from other people on it as well.
I'm with you on that. For me, it's the strength that I've gained from the guests that we've had on. And, hearing somebody else share their story, share their vulnerability, be honest about things. I mean, Sash comes to mind immediately because he was brought to tears during our show, right? And on the surface, if you look at pictures of him, he's just a big barrel of a man. And you wouldn't equate tears to a person like him, but he was vulnerable. And I thought to myself, well, if he can do that, I can tell a story. I can be open. I can be more honest. I can be more vulnerable. I can share more. And the vulnerability is our strength. And I think that is one of the things that I have learned over the last 8 months is being able to pull from you and our other guests and be like, if they can talk about this, so can I, and grow from there. And I know we joked about it, in the beginning of the show, like my hands would be they would be glistening with sweat. And now they're absolutely dry because we can have these conversations. I've gotten more comfortable in my own skin about talking about these things. And I think that to me has been one of the greatest gifts that this show has given me over the last 8 months. And I do echo your thought process, which is for the audience to say, hey, you should have this person on. And, they've impacted me this way. And I think they'd be a great guest, would be tremendous. And so we'll put out a call for guests. And I'm excited to take this next couple of months off and regroup, reassess, figure out how we move forward starting in September. But for those of you who are still here, doesn't mean Enduring Minds is going away. We are going to have the in-between in these 2 months. They just won't be with guests, and it'll be Evan and I talking about various different aspects of men's mental health and breaking the stigma and creating a supportive space for people to share their stories. So I'm excited about that little wrinkle in the first year's episodes that we're putting in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to give a quick shout out to Sachin. He's actually going across Canada right now. He's actually in Calgary for a few days. He changed his whole plan because he actually realized that running on the highways across Canada wasn't allowing for him to make any connections whatsoever. And that's what this whole thing about across Canada was. So he's actually pick 26 different towns or cities that he's going to spend more time in and run his ultras in the town or city, and connect with the community. So he's actually in Calgary for the next few days. So I'm hoping to connect with him. But yeah, if you're not following him, follow his at Satch in Motion, and follow his journey through across Canada, because he's doing a lot of good things for mental health and having a lot of conversations. He's had a lot of people that he's been able to talk to already just by changing what he was doing, and him realizing that he wasn't getting the connection that he wanted. And that's exactly what we're all about. So I think good on him for pivoting and understanding that it's not always about speed.
100%. I love that idea of changing when you need to change, because you're not getting out of it what you want to get out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dude, thank you so much for a phenomenal first season of Enduring Minds. I'm looking forward to season 2 and, improving upon the things that we've done so far. It's been phenomenal. And the stories that we've gotten in return from people behind the scenes, the DMs and the emails, have been awesome and empowering. So thank you so much for taking the chance and taking a risk and having these conversations with me.
Yeah, you as well, man. I know we've grown a lot together, and I'm sure there's more to come. So I'm excited.
Thanks, audience. Appreciate your time, and keep looking for Enduring Minds on your favorite